They materialized out of folded space like legends becoming reality. Vessels that seemed to be constructed from crystallized time itself, their surfaces shifting between states of matter and patterns that made Elena's eyes water and her mind struggle to process what she was seeing. The architect fleet numbered 17 ships, each one unique, but sharing the same impossible aesthetic. They moved through space as if the normal laws of physics were merely suggestions, their hulls phasing in and out of visible dimensions while leaving trails of restructured space-time in their wake. Prometheus to unknown vessels. Elena broadcast across all frequencies, her voice tight with desperate hope. "This is Commander Vasquez. We're in urgent need of assistance." The reply came not through conventional radio waves, but directly into her consciousness, translated by technology that operated on principles beyond human understanding. "We know your need, children of young stars. The hunger wakes, and the ancient compact crumbles. We come to honor the final duty sworn when your species still dreamed in caves." Admiral Harrison's fleet was moving to intercept the alien vessels, but their weapons passed harmlessly through the architect's ships as if they were firing at mirages made of structured light. "Your lesser minds cannot fully grasp what approaches," the telepathic voice continued, and Elena could sense vast sadness behind the words. "The Devourer does not merely consume matter and energy. It unweaves the very mathematical foundations that allow existence to continue. Each moment of its freedom unmakes what was and prevents what could be." Elena felt the truth of those words resonating in her bones. Through the command station's enhanced sensors, she could see the effect already spreading outward from Kepler 442b. Space itself was becoming less stable, less real, as if the universe was forgetting how to exist in that region. "Can it be stopped?" she asked aloud, knowing the architects could hear her thoughts. "Not stopped. The Devourer exists in a state beyond stopping, beyond ending. But it can be contained, if the price is paid in full. The final prison waits beyond the veil, but the path is treacherous, and the journey itself may doom many." Dr. Okafor's voice crackled over the comm from one of the architect vessels. "Elena, I'm aboard their flagship, if you can call it that. They're sharing their knowledge directly through some kind of neural interface. The Devourer feeds on reality, but it's also fundamentally addicted to it. It can't resist sources of particularly dense space-time curvature, like a primordial black hole. Exactly like a primordial black hole. To the Devourer, PBH 2847 would represent the ultimate feast, a concentration of raw space-time formed at the moment of universal creation. But the moment it tries to consume a primordial black hole, it gets trapped," Elena finished. "The event horizon holds even entities that exist beyond normal physics." Jake's voice came over the comm with grim humor. "So our plan is to play cosmic tag with a reality-eating monster, lure it to a black hole, and hope it falls in before it figures out the trap?" "The analogy is crude, but essentially accurate," came the architect response. "But understand, the hunger will follow because it cannot resist the taste of fleeing life. Your terror, your desperation, your struggle to survive. These are the seasonings that make the feast irresistible to its ancient palate." The station shook violently as the Dyson sphere began its final collapse. Through the viewports, Elena could see the artificial star expanding, its surface cracking like an egg as something vast and terrible pushed through from within. The thing that emerged defied human perception. It was darkness given form, entropy made manifest, a writhing mass of unreality that existed in the spaces between thoughts and the gaps in logic. It was impossibly vast, yet terrifyingly intimate, as if it knew each person individually and found them delectable. "The compact begins," the architect voice announced with ceremonial gravity. "All who would survive must join the flight. The hunger will follow, for it has been denied the feast of living consciousness for too long." Elena made a decision that went against every instinct she possessed. "All Union vessels, this is Commander Vasquez. Immediate full retreat to coordinates I'm transmitting. Maximum emergency speed." "Commander," Admiral Harrison's voice was tight with rage and growing fear. "You are exceeding your authority by orders of magnitude." "Admiral, look at your sensor readings." Elena shouted, her composure finally cracking. "Look at what's happening to the stars around us. We're not retreating from a battle. We're running for our lives and the lives of everyone in this galaxy." The proof was undeniable. On every tactical display, stars were simply ceasing to exist as the Devourer's influence spread through subspace. Not exploding, not collapsing, simply stopping, as if they had never been born from cosmic gas and stellar nurseries. Harrison's fleet began to withdraw, though Elena suspected it was more from primal self-preservation than acceptance of her authority. Marcus, Korvac, Elena ordered over the comm, "Abandon the sabotage operation and get to evacuation ships immediately. The containment has failed completely." "Already moving," came Marcus's reply, strained with exhaustion. "Elena, the readings we're getting from that thing, it's beyond anything in our physics textbooks. It's not just consuming matter and energy, it's consuming the mathematical foundations that allow matter and energy to exist in the first place." Elena and her team ran through the collapsing command station as emergency lights flashed and structural supports buckled under stresses that shouldn't have been possible in normal space-time. Behind them, she could hear the fabric of reality itself groaning under the assault of pure entropy. They reached the Midnight Runner, just as the docking bay began to fold in on itself in ways that violated basic geometry. Jake's fingers flew over the controls with desperate precision, bringing the ship's illegal modifications online while Zara monitored the catastrophic readings from the station sensors. "Everyone secured," Jake called out as Marcus and Korvac dove through the airlock, their environmental suits smoking from radiation exposure. "Go, go, go," Elena shouted. The runner shot out of the disintegrating station like a bullet, Jake's legendary piloting skills pushed to their absolute limits as debris from the collapsing Dyson sphere filled the space around them. Behind them, the artificial star finally cracked open completely. What emerged was hunger in its purest form. Not the biological need for sustenance, but the fundamental force that drives entropy toward maximum chaos. It was the inevitable end of all things given consciousness and malevolent will. "Holy Mother of..." Jake began, then stopped as his instruments began registering readings that violated several laws of physics simultaneously. "It's following us," Marcus whispered, watching the sensor displays show impossible patterns of space-time distortion. Just like the architects predicted. Through the viewport, Elena could see the architects' ships surrounding their ragtag fleet of refugees in a protective formation. Their crystalline hulls pulsed with energies that actively reinforced the fabric of reality against the approaching dissolution. "The flight begins," came the ancient telepathic voice. 3 days to the final prison through the most dangerous regions of space. 3 days to outrun entropy itself. Some will not survive. The hunger feeds as it follows, growing stronger with each life consumed. But some must reach the destination, or all will be lost. Elena strapped herself into the co-pilot's chair, watching as the stars ahead of them began to dim. The Devourer was chasing them, and its very presence was unmaking the universe in their wake. "Jake," she said quietly, "how fast can this ship really go when everything depends on it?" The smuggler's grin was equal parts terror and exhilaration as he engaged drives that should have torn the ship apart. "Commander, we're about to find out just how fast a man can run when the end of all things is chasing him." The race to save the galaxy had begun, and behind them, cosmic horror hungered for the taste of fleeing life. 18 hours into their flight to the Vale Nebula, they had lost a third of Admiral Harrison's remaining fleet to the expanding zone of non-existence that followed them like a cosmic shadow. The Devourer didn't need to actively hunt its prey. It simply allowed its influence to spread through subspace, letting reality fail around any ship that couldn't maintain sufficient velocity. Elena monitored the tactical display with growing despair as another Union destroyer simply winked out of existence, its crew of 400 souls consumed by entropy incarnate. The ship hadn't been destroyed. It had never existed, erased retroactively from the timeline as the Devourer fed on the quantum possibilities that had once allowed it to be. "Runner to convoy." Dr. Okafor's voice came over the comm from Architect Vessel Designation, Eternal Vigil. "I'm getting new information about the final prison. It's not just a primordial black hole. It's a fundamental flaw in the mathematics of reality itself, a place where the constants that define existence break down completely. Sounds like a perfect match for our passenger, Jake muttered through gritted teeth, making another micro-adjustment to their flight path. The ship's engines were running at 115% capacity, held together by illegal modifications, quantum prayer, and sheer desperate determination. Marcus looked up from his sensor station, his face pale with exhaustion and growing horror. Elena, the expansion rate is increasing. The Devourer is getting stronger as it feeds on the destroyed ships. At this rate, it will overtake us before we reach the Veil Nebula. Elena studied the tactical plot, her mind racing through increasingly desperate alternatives. Then we make it work harder for its meal. Jake, what's the most dangerous route to our destination? The smuggler's cybernetic eye whirred as it calculated probabilities that would have made a mathematician weep. Well, there's the maelstrom fields, gravimetric anomalies that can tear apart heavy cruisers. The Cascade Nebula with its reality storms that scramble the laws of physics. Oh, and the lovely void shoals where space-time gets a bit thin and ships sometimes fall through cracks in the universe. Plot a course through all of them. Commander, Korvac interjected, his crystalline form flashing alarmed amber patterns. Such a route would be suicide for most vessels under normal circumstances. Better than the certain death we're facing now, Elena replied grimly. The Devourer feeds on stable reality. Maybe if we drag it through enough chaos, we can slow it down, or at least make it work for its dinner. Your instincts serve you well, child of stars, came the architect voice in Elena's mind. The hunger struggles in regions where reality is already unstable. But know that the path will cost lives, both yours and ours. The next 16 hours were a masterclass in precision flying through the galaxy's most hazardous regions. Jake guided their increasingly desperate convoy through a series of space-time anomalies that would have challenged the most experienced pilots under ideal conditions. With a reality-eating horror pursuing them, it became a dance with annihilation on multiple levels. The maelstrom fields nearly claimed half their remaining ships. Gravitational shears that could tear apart asteroids grabbed at their hulls while tidal forces played havoc with their navigation systems. Elena watched in helpless horror as two more Union vessels, a research ship and a construction tender, were caught by gravitational eddies and crushed into neutronium paste. But the Devourer struggled here too. The chaotic gravitational environment interfered with its ability to maintain coherent influence over local space-time, forcing it to expend more energy to continue its pursuit. It's working, Marcus reported with barely contained excitement. The expansion rate is slowing. The unstable space-time matrix is interfering with its ability to unmake reality efficiently. Through the Cascade Nebula, reality itself became fluid and uncertain. Colors that had no names in any galactic language painted themselves across the void while fundamental constants fluctuated in ways that made navigation a nightmare of quantum uncertainty. Jake flew by instinct more than instruments, his cybernetic implants struggling to process sensor data that contradicted itself from moment to moment. Elena, Zara called out from the navigation station, her voice tight with concentration. I'm reading massive temporal distortions ahead. The nebula is causing causality loops, effects preceding their causes by several minutes. Can we use that to our advantage? Maybe. If we time our passage correctly, we might be able to create a temporal buffer between us and the Devourer. Force it to chase us through twisted space-time where its influence is less effective. The gambit worked, but at a terrible cost. 3 architect vessels were lost in the temporal maze, their crews sacrificing themselves to maintain the reality anchors that kept the rest of the fleet from being scattered across different timelines. Their sacrifice will be remembered, came the mournful telepathic voice. They joined the countless others who have given their lives to hold back the hunger. Elena felt each loss like a physical blow, but she forced herself to focus on the mission. Grief was a luxury they couldn't afford while racing to prevent galactic extinction. Finally, after 32 hours of flight through the most dangerous regions of known space, Dr. Okafor's voice crackled over the comm with barely contained relief. There, dead ahead. I can see it. Elena looked through the viewport and felt her breath catch in her throat. The primordial black hole sat at the heart of the Veil Nebula like a wound in the fabric of existence itself. It was smaller than she had expected, barely 3 solar masses, but its gravity well was impossibly deep, formed in the first microseconds after the Big Bang, when the laws of physics were still cooling from the primordial chaos. Around PBH 2847, space-time was twisted into configurations that hurt to contemplate directly. This wasn't just a black hole. It was a fundamental error in reality's programming, a place where the universe had forgotten how to make sense. The final prison awaits, the architect voice whispered with ancient weariness. But the hunger has learned caution during its eons of imprisonment. It will not approach directly. It must be encouraged. Elena understood immediately what was required. We need bait, something it can't resist consuming. The Prometheus, Marcus said quietly, his voice heavy with the weight of inevitable sacrifice. 10,000 souls, enough concentrated life energy to make it abandon caution. Elena's heart clenched at the thought of sacrificing her ship and crew, but before she could respond, Jake spoke up with quiet determination. No, there's a better way. He was staring at his ship's power core readouts, his expression grim with acceptance. The runner's antimatter containment system. I've been pushing it past redline for 32 hours straight. It's going to fail anyway, probably catastrophically. Jake, no. Elena protested, understanding his intention immediately. Commander, it's the only way that makes sense. A ship's antimatter core going critical. That's a concentrated feast of pure energy conversion. Matter becoming energy, becoming exotic particles. The Devourer won't be able to resist that kind of reality-dense explosion. Elena saw his plan with horrible clarity. You'll detonate the core just as the entity reaches the event horizon. The explosion will provide the final push to get it past the point of no return. Exactly. One smuggler's ship and one stubborn pilot versus cosmic horror. I've faced worse odds. The debate was cut short by alarms throughout the ship as the Devourer finally caught up to them. Its influence washed over their small fleet like a tide of dissolution. And through the viewports Elena could see stars beginning to flicker and fade as reality grew thin around them. It's now or never, Jake announced, already beginning the complex process of transferring essential ship functions to autopilot while preparing the antimatter containment for control failure. Everyone to the escape pods, Elena ordered, though her voice cracked with emotion. Jake, it's been an honor serving with you, Commander, the smuggler interrupted, his scarred face showing the closest thing to peace Elena had ever seen there. Now get out of here before I change my mind and decide I want to live forever. Elena, Marcus, Korvac, and Zara crowded into the nearest escape pod as Jake initiated the Midnight Runner's final gambit. Through the pod's limited viewport, she watched the ship that had carried them through impossible dangers streak toward the primordial black hole, its hull glowing white-hot from antimatter containment failure. Behind it, the Devourer unfolded itself fully for the first time in 12,000 years, revealing the true scope of the horror they faced. It wasn't just vast, it was vastness itself, hunger so profound it had achieved consciousness and malevolent will. It existed in dimensions beyond the normal 3, its true form visible only as shadows cast across reality by something too large for the universe to contain. The Midnight Runner crossed the event horizon of PBH 2847 just as the Devourer reached out with tendrils of living entropy to claim its prize. Jake's timing was perfect. The antimatter explosion came exactly as the cosmic horror committed itself to the pursuit. The detonation was unlike anything Elena had ever witnessed. Not just matter and energy, but the fundamental forces that bound reality together erupted outward in a sphere of pure creation. For one impossible moment, the space around the black hole blazed with the light of a newborn universe. The Devourer, caught in mid-lunge and drunk on the feast of exotic particles, suddenly found itself past the point of no return. Its hungry essence, which had been pulling itself forward to claim the runner's energy, was now trapped within an event horizon where even its reality-consuming abilities could not function. But it didn't go quietly into that final prison. The entity's death scream echoed across dimensions, a howl of frustrated hunger that shattered quantum foam and sent ripples through the fundamental forces that held the galaxy together. Several remaining ships simply ceased to exist, unmade by the psychic backlash of cosmic horror being denied its ultimate feast. Elena's escape pod was tossed like a leaf in a hurricane as space-time itself convulsed around the primordial black hole. Through the chaos and pain, she could see PBH 2847 beginning to change, its accretion disk flaring with energies that had never existed before in the history of the universe. "It's not dead," Marcus gasped, blood running from his nose where the psychic scream had overwhelmed his nervous system. "It can't die, but it's trapped, locked in a place where time has no meaning and causality breaks down. The final prison accepts its burden," came the weakened architect voice, heavy with grief for their losses, but carrying a note of ancient satisfaction. "The hunger sleeps again, bound in a place where even its nature cannot function. The compact is fulfilled." Elena watched as the black hole's accretion disk flared one final time and then went dark. The Devourer was trapped in a place where the laws of physics themselves broke down, imprisoned in a region where its reality-consuming abilities were meaningless. The galaxy was safe, but the cost had been terrible. Jake Morrison, along with hundreds of other brave souls, had given their lives to contain an ancient evil that had threatened the existence of everything they held dear. As rescue ships began arriving from Union Command, Admiral Harrison among them, his expression showing he finally understood the magnitude of what they had faced, Elena allowed herself a moment of grief for the smuggler who had saved them all. But only a moment. There was too much work to be done, too many questions to answer, and too many safeguards to put in place to ensure that cosmic horror would never again catch the galaxy unprepared. 3 months after what the Union officially designated as the Kepler incident, Elena stood in a place that shouldn't have existed, the bridge of an architect vessel, surrounded by technology that operated on principles beyond human comprehension. The ship, designated Eternal Vigil in rough translation, existed partially outside normal space-time, allowing its crew to monitor cosmic threats across multiple galactic clusters simultaneously. Through its impossible viewports, Elena could see the Veil Nebula where PBH 2847 continued its eternal vigil, the primordial black hole now serving as the ultimate prison for the Devourer. The readings remained stable, Dr. Okafor reported, her neural interface with the architect's systems allowing her to process information at levels that would have overwhelmed unaugmented human consciousness. The entity is fully contained within the event horizon. Its reality-consuming abilities are neutralized by the breakdown of causality itself. "Yet we must remain watchful," came the mental voice of Architect Prime Zelkin, his consciousness now existing as a fusion of organic thought and quantum computation. "The hunger is patient beyond mortal understanding. It will test its prison for weaknesses across geological timescales." Elena nodded, reviewing the reports from the newly established Cosmic Threat Assessment Division. In the wake of the crisis, the Galactic Union had finally acknowledged the existence of forces beyond conventional understanding. Her organization now commanded resources that dwarfed most planetary budgets, tasked with identifying and containing dangers that transcended normal physics. "Commander," Lieutenant Tanaka called from the communications station, "we're receiving priority transmission from Union Command. Admiral Harrison requests immediate conference." The holographic display materialized to show Harrison's weathered face, marked now by the humility that came from nearly unleashing cosmic horror upon the galaxy. The Admiral had spent the past 3 months in classified debriefings, helping Union Command understand the magnitude of threats they had been ignorantly confronting. "Commander Vasquez," Harrison began, his tone carrying none of his former arrogance, "I have update from the deep space monitoring stations. We've detected unusual stellar phenomena in the Andromeda Galaxy, energy patterns that match some of the architect warning profiles." Elena felt the familiar chill of recognition. "Analysis. Unknown at this time, but the patterns suggest artificial origin. Dr. Kim's team believes we may be observing another sealed one attempting to break containment. Recommendations. Full deployment of the new monitoring protocols. If Andromeda has its own version of the Devourer, we need to know about it before it decides to visit our galaxy." Elena nodded grimly. The victory over the Devourer had taught them that the universe was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Ancient horrors slumbered in the spaces between stars, held in check by technology and sacrifices made by civilizations whose names were lost to time. Your species learns wisdom through adversity. Architect Prime, Zelkin observed. This is the beginning of true understanding. The recognition that existence itself requires constant vigilance against the forces of dissolution. Dr. Marcus Chun materialized on the holographic display, calling in from the Union's new deep physics research station. Elena, I've been analyzing the quantum resonance patterns we recorded during the Devourer incident. There are 17 distinct signatures that suggest other entities of similar nature exist throughout the galaxy. Contained or free? Elena asked, though she dreaded the answer. Mixed. Some appear to be properly imprisoned. Others show signs of weakening containment. But Elena, there's something else. The resonance patterns suggest these entities aren't random cosmic accidents. They're connected, part of some larger pattern or purpose. Elena absorbed this information while watching the strange beauty of folded space-time through the architect's ship's viewports. Could they be fragments of something larger? That's my fear. What if the entities we call sealed ones are actually components of something even more vast and terrible? Pieces of some cosmic consciousness that was shattered and scattered across the galaxy in the distant past. The implications were staggering. If Marcus was correct, then the Devourer hadn't been a unique horror, but part of a larger entity. Perhaps the remnant of a universe-consuming force that had been broken apart by desperate civilizations in ages past. Your physicist approaches the terrible truth, Zelkin confirmed. The hunger you contained was but one aspect of what the ancient texts called the final entropy, the ultimate expression of universal decay, given consciousness and will. We shattered it across time and space, but the fragments remained dangerous. How many fragments? Elena asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. Unknown. We scattered the pieces across multiple galactic clusters and dimensions. Some may have been truly destroyed. Others may have found ways to reconstitute themselves. The vigilance must be eternal. Elena looked around the bridge of the architect vessel, taking in the alien technology and the faces of her increasingly diverse crew. Humans, Xenarans, surviving architects, and dozens of other species now work together in an organization dedicated to protecting the galaxy from cosmic-scale threats. It wasn't the future any of them had planned for, but it was the future they had earned through sacrifice and determination. Admiral Harrison, she said, returning her attention to the communication display, authorized full deployment of the new monitoring network. If there are more sealed ones out there, we need to find them before they find us. Already in progress, Commander. The Union Council has approved unlimited funding for cosmic threat assessment. After what we experienced with the Devourer, no one wants to be caught unprepared again. Elena nodded, then added quietly, Any word on the Jake Morrison Memorial? Harrison's expression softened slightly. The ceremony is next month on New Geneva. The Union is posthumously awarding him the Galaxy Cross, highest honor we can bestow. His sacrifice saved not just our civilization, but potentially countless others. He'd hate the formality, Elena replied with a sad smile. But he'd love knowing that his final con job was played against cosmic horror itself. After the transmission ended, Elena remained on the bridge, watching the stars through viewports that existed in more dimensions than human eyes were meant to perceive. Somewhere out there, other ancient horrors waited in their prisons, plotting escapes that might take millions of years to execute. But now the galaxy was ready for them. The Union had finally learned to look beyond their immediate concerns and prepare for threats that transcended conventional understanding. The Cosmic Threat Assessment Division would be their shield against the darkness between stars, staffed by individuals who had stared into the abyss and refused to blink. The compact continues. Architect Prime, Zelkin observed. Each generation must choose whether to guard against the darkness or ignore it until catastrophe forces their attention. Your species is chosen wisely. Elena settled into the command chair that had been designed for her human physiology by craftsmen who understood the mathematics of space and time. Around her, beings from across the galaxy worked to protect everything they held dear from forces that existed beyond love, beyond hate, beyond everything except hunger. Status report. she requested, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had faced cosmic horror and lived to tell about it. All monitoring stations report normal operations, Dr. Okafor replied. Deep space sensors are functioning within acceptable parameters. The galaxy remains secure for now. Elena nodded, knowing that, for now, was the best they could hope for when dealing with threats that operated on geological timescales. But it was enough. They had bought time. Time for civilizations to grow and learn. Time for new technologies to be developed. Time for the next generation of Guardians to prepare for challenges that hadn't yet emerged from the darkness. Outside the viewport, the stars shone steady and bright. A galaxy learning to protect itself from forces that would unmake everything in existence. The Devourer slept in its final prison. Jake Morrison's sacrifice had meaning that would echo through the ages, and somewhere in the vast cosmos, new heroes were being born who would face the next cosmic threat with courage inherited from those who had gone before. Elena smiled and returned to her work. The universe was vast and full of dangers, but it was also full of people willing to stand guard against the dark. And that, she had learned, made all the difference in the universe. Elena stood in her office aboard Cosmic Threat Assessment Station Alpha, gazing out at the swirling beauty of the Veil Nebula. Through the viewport, she could see the distorted space-time, where PBH 2847 maintained its eternal vigil, and beyond that, the first of humanity's new deep space monitoring arrays, a network of early warning systems that spanned 3 galactic arms. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, built with Union resources, but incorporating architect, design principles and technologies from a dozen different species. It existed partially outside normal space-time, allowing its crew to monitor cosmic threats across vast distances, while remaining protected from most forms of exotic attack. Commander, Lieutenant Tanaka called from the communications array, her console displaying more sophisticated quantum entanglement networks than any previous generation had thought possible. We're receiving reports of unusual stellar phenomena in the Magellanic Clouds. Energy patterns consistent with Sealed 1 containment failure. Elena nodded, settling into her command chair. Around her, the most diverse crew in galactic history worked at stations designed to detect and analyze threats that transcended normal understanding. Humans worked alongside Xenarans whose crystalline forms had been modified to process quantum data directly. Surviving architects served as advisors, their ancient wisdom guided by eons of experience with cosmic horror. Even former smugglers and criminals had found purpose in the organization that defended reality itself. Analysis team, report, Elena requested. Dr. Marcus Chun looked up from his exotic physics station, his face showing the calm competence of someone who had learned to take impossible readings in stride. Preliminary data suggests a Category 7 containment breach. Not immediate galactic threat level, but definitely requiring intervention. Dr. Okafor, what do the historical databases tell us about that region? The xenoarchaeologist consulted texts that existed in more than 3 dimensions, her neural interface allowing her to process information from civilizations that had died before Earth-Sun was born. Ancient architect records indicate a minor Sealed 1 was contained in that region approximately 8,000 years ago. If the prison is failing, we have perhaps 6 months before the entity achieves full freedom. Recommendations. Chief Engineer Korvac, his crystalline form, now permanently modified with quantum processing nodes, spoke up from his station. We could deploy a containment reinforcement team using the new reality anchor technology. Alternatively, if the entity is small enough, we might be able to relocate it to a more secure prison. Elena considered the options while monitoring displays that showed the cosmic threat level across 17 different galactic regions. This was the new reality. Constant vigilance against forces that operated on scales beyond normal human comprehension. Your species adapts well to the burden of eternal watch, came the mental voice of Architect Prime Zelkin, his consciousness now distributed across the station's quantum computing matrix. Few civilizations maintain vigilance once the immediate threat passes. We learned the hard way, Elena replied, remembering the desperate flight to save the galaxy and the friends who had died to make it possible. Jake Morrison didn't sacrifice himself, so we could go back to ignoring cosmic threats. She activated the station's main communication array, broadcasting on secure channels to Union Command, the Architect survivors, and the growing network of species dedicated to cosmic defense. This is Commander Vasquez, Cosmic Threat Assessment Division. We have a confirmed Sealed 1 containment failure in the Magellanic Clouds. Recommend immediate deployment of Response Team 7 with full reality stabilization equipment. The response came back within minutes, not just from Union Command, but from a dozen different civilizations that had joined the Cosmic Defense Network. Ships began altering course from across the galaxy. Crews trained in the difficult art of containing forces that existed beyond conventional physics. "Ma'am," Dr. Okafor called out, "I'm also detecting something else in the quantum resonance patterns. There's another signal, very faint, but it's using Architect encryption protocols." Elena felt her pulse quicken. New Architect contact was always significant, representing access to knowledge and technology that could mean the difference between containment and catastrophe. "Can you decode it?" "Working on it, got it." Dr. Okafor's face showed a mixture of excitement and concern. "It's a message from Architect survivors in the Andromeda Galaxy. They're reporting that the entity we contained in PBH 2847 was not acting alone. There are others, a coordinated network of sealed ones, attempting synchronized escapes across multiple galaxies." Elena absorbed this information while watching status displays that monitored cosmic threat levels across known space. The scope of the danger was larger than they had imagined, but so was their capacity to respond. How many others? Unknown, but the Andromeda Architects estimate at least 47 active entities in their galaxy alone. They're requesting assistance from our Cosmic Defense Network. Elena looked around the command center at the beings who had dedicated their lives to protecting reality itself from forces that would unmake everything in existence. It was a bigger responsibility than any single species should have to bear, but they weren't alone anymore. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "We're going to need a much larger response." Over the following hours, Elena watched as the greatest cooperative effort in galactic history began to take shape. Ships from hundreds of different worlds, crewed by beings who had learned to work together despite fundamental differences in biology and philosophy, all united by the understanding that some threats transcended traditional boundaries. The Cosmic Threat Assessment Division had grown from Elena's desperate emergency response to a galaxy-spanning organization that commanded resources rivaling the greatest governments. More importantly, it had created a new kind of cooperation, species working together not for trade or politics, but for the simple necessity of keeping existence itself intact. "Commander," Marcus called out, "the response fleet is assembled. 47 ships representing 23 different species, all equipped with the latest reality stabilization technology." Elena nodded, then opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Commander Vasquez to all vessels. We face a threat that exists beyond normal understanding, but we face it together. Remember, we're not just protecting our own worlds or our own species. We're protecting the right of reality itself to continue existing." She paused, thinking of Jake Morrison and the countless others who had sacrificed everything to buy the galaxy time to prepare for this moment. "Let's go save some universes." The fleet departed Station Alpha, in perfect formation, ships from across the galaxy, united in purpose. Behind them, monitoring stations continued their eternal watch, sensors probing the darkness between stars for signs of ancient horrors stirring in their prisons. Elena remained on the station, coordinating the response, while managing dozens of other cosmic threats that required constant attention. It was exhausting work that never ended, but it was also the most important job in the galaxy. Through her viewport, she could see new stars being born in distant nebulae, stellar nurseries where future civilizations would eventually arise. Thanks to the sacrifices of people like Jake Morrison and the vigilance of organizations like the Cosmic Threat Assessment Division, those civilizations would have the chance to grow and flourish in a universe protected from the ultimate darkness. "The compact endures," Architect Prime Zelkin observed with something approaching satisfaction. "Each generation chooses to guard the light or abandon it to shadow. Your species has chosen well." Elena smiled and returned to her work. Somewhere in the Magellanic Clouds, Another sealed one was testing its prison walls. But this time, the galaxy was ready. The Eternal Watch continued, and reality itself was safer for it.